Hi, I'm Oscar.
Hi, I'm Maarten.
Hey Maarten, welcome to the show. Welcome to Better Talks, your first one.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You have some information or some knowledge to share about code reuse and YAML pipelines.
Yeah, exactly. As you know, Microsoft has been pushing the YAML pipelines more and more recently, even deprecating to the classic UI pipelines. So now is the perfect time to explain how you can make the transition easier by using YAML templates.
Awesome.
So first of all, code reuse. Most developers know why it's good to reuse code.
The drive principle, right?
Yeah, exactly. It prevents code duplication. It makes it easier to maintain your code because whenever you have to make an update, it's a lot easier to only have to do it in one place instead of all the places you've copied that snippet of code. And when you've already created some of the easier building blocks, you can reuse those building blocks to quickly create new pipelines for new applications when you need those. Of course, the layout of the pipelines has changed a little with the switch to YAML pipelines. In the old pipelines, there would be one build step and then a release step in another place.
So we have the old builds. It was called builds first.
Yeah, builds.
Now it's classic pipelines, I think. So that was the thing that built, published an artifact, and then your release, which is also still there, picks up the artifact and then starts pushing things out. And basically they're using the same steps, right? They're the base components of the whole build system.
It's really alike. These days I think the classic builds are already deprecated. But the release, you can still create the classic UI type releases.
There are still some few features there. I think that they're not available
they're
yet.
Still, exactly. But most of the stuff that you mostly use is already available in the YAML pipelines. So these days it's just you edit a YAML file, push it to the repo, and then in Azure Pipelines you can make it run and deploy the code. I think the biggest change is the fact that in the YAML pipeline it's just a file that is stored in your repository with all your other code. So it's no longer a separate entity somewhere in Azure DevOps that you have to edit separate from your code. Because it lives in your repo, it's always it's really easy to version it along with your application code. You can edit it with text editors. You can easily revert because it's all part of the same commits. So it's really easy to incorporate the pipeline work with all of your standard application changes.
Yeah, because the YAML pipeline is now a file and code. It's like a bicep for infrastructure as code. Like it's there, while the older one was data and Azure DevOps, basically, right?
Exactly, and also pull requests. It's all completely integrated with the rest of your regular development work, and it also creates. Makes it a lot easier that it's all in one place. So you no longer have to search for builds and releases. It's just one pipeline and it all works.
And next to them, what I really like is because it's in Git next to your code, if you're creating a new rev of your code and you use a new framework or need some different variables to build it, different parameters actually, also that one is in your branch and you couldn't put the version of the build in the branch, and sometimes you got out of order with that, or we already changed the build for what we're going to do next.
Exactly.
And that's gone with this because it's packed
it's just
alongside.
Exactly the same package. So it's always it always works when you want to revert to an older version, for instance. All right. So in the YAML template, YAML pipeline, I mean, there's some essential steps that you need to know before you can start creating a pipeline. There's 3 hierarchy levels in your file. So this is an image straight from the Microsoft documentation site. The pipeline basically consists of multiple stages, or one or multiple stages. In a stage there can be multiple jobs, and in a job there can be multiple steps. and those steps are when are the place where all of the work actually happens. So that's where the different tasks, the publish, deploy tasks live. There can be scripts you can run in the steps. So that's the most important level where all of the work is actually done by the build agent.
And those are the tasks that you call there. They're exactly the same as in the classic one.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So
tasks that Azure DevOps knows.
Yeah, exactly. And you can even import those directly from the classic pipeline, and we'll show that later during the case study. When you want to use template files to remove duplicate code, it's actually really simple. It's just a regular YAML file, just the same as your top level build file that you create the pipeline from. It can consist of all those 3 levels that we just talked about, from a stage, a job, or a step. It can also just only contain variables. So let's say you have a long list of variables that you want to use in multiple pipelines. You can create one template file and import that in every pipeline where you need those. And they can also be built in a separate repository. So if you have multiple applications that live in separate repositories, you can create a template repository that you can insert into those separate pipelines.
So if your tech stack is basically the same, your build pipeline will probably be the same.
Yeah.
Next to that, it might be mandatory that you have static code analysis or whatever. So you don't have to do that every time on every place, and also you cannot forget to do one of those steps.
Exactly. So you just import your template and it all fills out as you need it.
And the levels where you put it on, you say stage, job, or step level, so that means that on every level you can just pull out a piece of YAML and make a template out of it and do some reuse.
Yeah.
Okay, you can also mix and match. Can you call a template in a template?
You can, yeah, exactly. So when the pipeline is sent to your build agent, right before that, all of the different templates that you use will be put together into one big file. You can actually see it. I'll show you later how you can retrieve that file that will get built. And all those different templates, the parameters will be filled. They will be put inside one big file, and that will get sent to the build agent. So you can mix, match, make different levels of templates, anything you want, it all works.
Sounds awesome. I think we need to dive in a bit deeper.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at a small case study. We have 2 function apps that we're going to try to build and deploy. Both are built on a Windows machine, both are deployed on a Windows machine. So yeah, it's basically the same pipeline-wise, they're exactly the same.
Yeah, so you're both Azure functions deploying to Azure, building for Windows, same function framework or library version.
Yeah.
So basically you have 2 separate pipelines now, which you want to reuse.
Exactly. So this is one of the perfect examples where we can use one template for the same build, the same deployment, and use it twice in 2 different pipelines with a small change to some variables in the pipeline. So let's have a look at what we have right now for the templates. Right now we have one pipeline for the application.
So the build pipeline for this application is already in YAML.
The build pipeline is already in YAML because I think for builds the classic pipeline is completely deprecated. And for the release, that is still in the classic pipeline with the different steps. And yeah, usually you would just fill in all of these blanks and it would create the pipeline for you. And
we did have some reuse possibility here, right? Because we had the task groups, or we still have the task groups.
Yeah.
Where you can basically, well, these 3 or 4 steps, create a task group, and then you add that task group instead of the steps in another pipeline. But still, for each and every deployment, you need to go into the portal, edit it there, and it's really hard to ask someone like, oh, what did you change because it broke? Exactly.
So the versioning was really difficult. compared to the newer YAML pipeline. So let's try to incorporate this classic pipeline together with the already existing YAML into one pipeline using templates. So I've prepared some files for us that we can take a look at. So we can have a look at what the final result will be like.
Okay, so you cheated a little, but saves time.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with spacing and alignment.
So for the build, since these are exactly the same, they don't use any variables.
Yeah, between the two function apps.
Between the two function apps, exactly. We can just copy this entirely into our build template. So this is just the exact same thing with the different build steps, the publish, the copy, and the build artifacts. Just exactly the same. We name it build template and we put it in a separate pipelines repository, so we can use it in multiple repositories by referencing it. And we can just use this as it is right now.
And how would you then change the existing ones? Because you have two identical existing ones. You take out the whole content, put it somewhere in the middle, and you point these two towards this one?
I'll show you in a file a bit later how we can reference the template.
Okay.
But basically the file that gets used by the pipeline itself, it will be pretty much empty. It will only have a reference to this because everything's here, exactly. So it will only have a reference to this template and then to the release part of the template. So let's take a look at that release, how we would transition that to a YAML file.
Yeah.
If you are in the edit screen on the classic UI pipeline and you select a task, you can press the button View YAML and Microsoft will output this exact YAML step for you, which you can copy and paste into a YAML file, and you do the same for every of these tasks, and then you will end up with a file like this.
So basically paste the tasks back in.
Paste the task back in. All you have to change is the variables. So if you look at this screen, at the YAML that we have just copied, it will have the variables that are used in the task. Of course, these are already set, and since we're making a template, we want to make sure that we can provide those values to the template as we use it.
Yeah, so this is not literally paste over, but like it's pretty clear. It's like it's using these variables, so make sure that they're in that context.
Exactly.
And then the task definitions you can just pull into
the task definitions template. We can just copy, and then we will end up with this file where we have changed these to the parameters. Then when we want to use those files, we create a YAML file where we can reference those templates. So because we have the templates in another repository, we have to create a repository reference.
Good thing maybe to point out, because like moving those from variables to parameters, there's some different syntax. So be sure to make sure, because it's not the $ thing.
You're completely right. It's not exactly the $. So when we take a look at these this syntax right here, instead of the $ with round brackets,
it has braces, right?
So we use the braces and we use the parameters dot function app name to reference this parameter.
Definitely made that mistake once or twice.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that you get used to, and even when you make the mistake, it will throw a syntax error and you will easily catch it.
There's some good documentation on also default variables that are available and how this syntax really works.
Yeah, you're completely right. It's the documentation is excellent.
That could be an issue if you're
so when we take a look at this release pipeline, we have to reference the repository.
This is the repository where your template only is.
Where your templates are, exactly. So this syntax, resources, repositories, is where you can edit in all your different repos that you want to use in your in your pipeline. In this case, I'm going to name it pipelines templates, because it's an easy way to remember it.
It's not the name of the repo.
This is the name that we can reference inside of this YAML file. The name, that's the name of your repo.
So this is the repo name within the same Azure DevOps project.
Yes. When we want to reference the template, all we have to do is use the keyword template. Then we use the name of the template as it is in the repository. Then we put an @ and then the repository reference, and that's it. That's all we have to do.
And this name is that because it's on root level of that repository?
It's on the root level of that repository. If you would have another file, another folder there would be a folder here with a / and then it would find it from there.
And now you say on stages you reference template, so it's assuming this template needs to be staged level.
Exactly. So as when we look at the build template, it will be from the stages level, and when it gets combined, it will input it with the correct indentation for a stage level.
So if you would do a job level template or anything, you cannot mix them, of course, because a job won't work here.
A job won't work on the stages level, but if you were to have a stage here, then you could input a job level underneath that.
Or in the other template.
Or in the other template, yes, of course. So that's the build template. For the release template, we're going to do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, that's the one we're really migrating now, right?
That's the one we're migrating right now. So as we just saw, we had some parameters that we have to input. The function app name, which in this case is worker, and the environment, which in this case is dev. And when this is all pushed, and you can view it here, this is how it will look in your pipeline. But of course, when it's built, all of those templates will have to get put together.
Yeah, because it's a bit hard to see here, of course, what the effect will be. Because if you make a small mistake or anything, like what you get another build error and try again.
You're completely right. That's why they have included this really handy function. There's an option here to download the full YAML. And when you do that, you get the file that is created before it's sent to the build agent. And this will contain all of the template lines, but they will just be pasted together. All the parameters will be filled in, and you will get one big file that will contain all of the stages that we've just put in the template.
Yeah, that's an awesome feature, because like debugging this stuff can be really hard.
And really time consuming if every time you have to build it, push it, yeah.
So it definitely gives you a loop to inspect what you just did. Because this stuff normally doesn't work the first go.
No.
Well, with me at least, but I think all of us
have
that
yeah.
problem. But I didn't know about this feature. This would have saved me some time.
Yeah. So this is really handy, and to show you just how much effort how little effort this will take. I'm just going to add a new production environment. So all I have to do is copy this, change the environment to PRD, and it will just use the exact same release template. It will use the exact same app name worker, but now it will deploy all of the ARM template, deploy the application to a completely new environment by only adding 4 lines of code.
That is awesome. I think we saw now 2 forms of of reuse. One is like we have 2 applications basically the same, let's target them to the same template. And then the other point is like, oh, we're already releasing an environment in this pipeline. Let's release that twice. So there's a lot of extra work or extra small, tiny differences there would, get into over time that you now just prevent because everything is there. But also in this case, like real code, right? Try to prevent too much coupling, too much logic in there because you might get into trouble. But I think it's really good example to see how powerful this is comparing to what we were doing before.
It is, yes, absolutely.
So yeah, thank you for this information. It's awesome. I hope you learned something. I definitely learned something. I think awesome first video for you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Definitely, we will see more of you, I think. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.